Hey, Howard.
There are over 8 million drivers in the state of Illinois. With that many people on the road, accidents are bound to occur. I'm attorney Howard Ankin, and if you or someone you care about has been involved in an auto, rideshare, or trucking accident, I'm here to help.
He has your number in his phone!
Call my office for a free consultation at 312-6-million. I'm here when you need me. Injury law made personal, that's Ankin Law.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and we are recording this episode Sunday night, June 28th, 2026, as the Chicago White Sox wrapped up another series win, this time against the Kansas City Royals as they go 4-2 in this homestand, winning both series against the Cleveland Guardians and the Royals. The White Sox are now 43-39 on the season, still tied for first place in the American League Central. In this show's rundown, we'll be talking about the White Sox 22-run rampage that they had on Friday. Miguel Vargas had a big weekend. Beyond just his Friday performance, he also hit another home run on Sunday. Chase Meidroth and Jacob Gonzalez also had bounce-back weekends, and Seranthony Dominguez gets an easy runway. Joining me on the Sox Machine Podcast is Sox Machine's beat reporter James Fegan and managing editor Jim Margulis. And hello, gentlemen. The White Sox had a successful homestand. Yes, it'd been great if they would have found a way to sweep Cleveland, and they had another opportunity to get another sweep against Kansas City this weekend, but to go 4-2 against division foes, be 43-39, and still be tied for first place in the American League Central. I still view these outcomes for the White Sox as a positive. But James, we saw one of the best offensive explosions, especially in the history that we've been doing this podcast, and it looks like in our lifetime, when the White Sox scored 22 runs on Friday. 10 of those came in the third inning, and it was a lot of fun to be in the stands to watch that one unfold. What was it like for you, James, then going into the clubhouse and talking to the White Sox players after they scored 22 runs?
It was like another game. There were reasons like it wasn't like all the way like jacked up. I mean, more than like just normal. Like Sandlin, one, he now has like gotten 37 runs of support and 2 home starts. So this is normal for him, but also like he probably had been told or had indications that he was getting optioned already. So he was happy with his outing, but wasn't like over the moon overall. Chase Meidroth, who was like playing all out on the final out, was very much like, yeah, that's what we do. We play the final out, and kind of still in his Chase Meidroth intensity mode, rather than like, wow, what a super fun like night. There are no rules. We're going to live forever. Anything like some new tone that he doesn't usually speak in. Tristan Peters was pretty like happy, but Tristan Peters was like a subdued guy. Like him talking openly about hitting for power and saying like, what was your goal on that grand slam? And just like hit it as hard as possible. But I feel like that was even more just indicative of what their approach is early in the counts that they talk about than it was like, you know, them feeling their oats in some big way. And, you know, Jacob Gonzalez is pretty happy to like have gotten out of like, he had just snapped an 0 for 28 not too long ago. So he was kind of spent some more time like explaining like a little like guys kind of like slip in and out of their mechanics over the course of the year. So sure, as much as like his his whole season is defined by how he figured out how to rotate his hips and like keep his weight back and in a way that he wasn't able to do before. He had just like recently had some session with Ryan Fuller where they had explained how he had kind of like fallen out of his timing for it and corrected it. So he was like explaining that in terms of like, you know, obviously what we hope is, you know, a recent upturn in the last couple of games that he's shown, or he hopes. So it was not like super like bouncy or like more ecstatic than any of their walk-offs. I think they all kind of had like, there's been a general line of positivity throughout, and they all had kind of like maybe their individual reasons to be what they were, but they weren't like, oh man, especially Will Venable is like super even keeled and they kind of mirror him in that way. They were just like, yeah, that was a good night. And if anything, kind of struggled to repeat the same offensive dominance, throughout the weekend.
Yeah, they could have bottled some of those runs. A 12-1 victory would have been fine if they could spread out the other 10 runs over the two games, but unfortunately it doesn't work that way.
But I asked Will about that a little bit. Like, is there a point of just kind of spreading it on a little bit? Just because like you made them use so many relievers, they used 8 relievers that night, and like ideally it would have, but just like their efforts to basically have Michael Wacha stretch and cover the whole bullpen on Saturday worked,
Yeah.
and then pretty much everyone or a lot of guys got a little bit of redemption. Maybe not Schreiber. I don't think he's going to be looking at the series in any kind of fond way anytime soon. But guys like Alex Lang and Beckway came back to throw pretty well against them, and Steven Cruz is pretty good against them on Friday and Sunday. So maybe more some isolated guys having incredibly bad Friday nights more than total dominance of the Royals.
Well, Jim, with this series win for the White Sox, they also win the season series against the Kansas City Royals for the first time in 6 years. The last time the White Sox won a season series against Kansas City was back in the COVID season 2020, when the White Sox were 9-1 against Kansas City. And the White Sox now against American League Central opponents, they're 16-10, which is outstanding. And I think it's getting pretty close to already matching their win total against division opponents even last year. So great start for the White Sox in the division. And with this early season success against the Tigers, the Royals, the Twins, and the Guardians, does this give you confidence that the White Sox won't fade in the second half?
Guess we'll see how the road record goes. It's been pretty uneven in terms of especially how they pitch home and away to know exactly what their staying power is over the course of a season, over the course of a whole slate of opponents versus just isolated weekends or 3-game series here or there. I will say that like they've with winning the series against Kansas City, they've accomplished what they needed to, and that's like they have to topple their division opponents in order to spring a surprise on the American League postseason picture. And that, baseball being a zero-sum game, you got to win those games against the teams that were supposed to finish ahead of you. And basically the entire Central was supposed to finish ahead of them. So they are doing what they need to do to sneak into a spot. Perhaps they won't even sneak into it. Maybe they'll win the division or, win a second wild card berth, because right now the AL West looks like a mess. So I think it's a little premature to say like, yeah, beating the Royals means something greater than just taking advantage of a bad team while they're clearly just trying to find anybody who can get outs, late in the games and figure out a rotation and work around Bobby Witt's injury. But yeah, I think coming up, this series in Cleveland will be, I think, a better series to hang this conversation on.
Okay. That's fair. They are halfway through their division games for the season, and being 16-10, I think that again, it's another good sign for the White Sox, and it's a big reason why they're already 4 games above 500 this year. Hopefully that trend continues for the Chicago White Sox. Now, Miguel Vargas had a huge weekend. There's so many players to highlight, and if we did a highlight on everyone that was successful offensively this weekend, this would be a 2-hour podcast. But Miguel Vargas went 6 for 11 against the Royals. He had 2 homers, 7 RBIs. He walked 3 times. He only struck out once. And James, you have asked Miguel many times this season, now that he has 19 home runs in the year, about his power production. And he's been consistent. He has said that he's not aiming or looking to hit for home runs. He's just trying to make the best contact possible. But Miguel Vargas is now on pace to hit 37 home runs this season. Is this just Vargas figuring out his own hitting zone, or knowing his spots to maximize his A swing?
Yeah, I mean, he's not hitting for home runs in the sense that like no one just like swings and like thinks home run, please. Like it's more like
Kyle Schwarber, who's got
like,
30 now, right? Yeah.
Like I'm trying to drive the ball in the air and like hopefully good outcomes will happen. Like he's clearly taking like times to like or let it rip. That's like entered into his game in early encounters, and seeing his aggressive swings where like his bat speed spikes over like maybe 1 or 2 strikes where he's trying to put the ball in play. Like he's trying to slug. Now he doesn't like want to define his success that way, And that's something that he says has been like actively encouraged, like from, Showman and the company for like the whole season. So like there's certainly an approach element to it, but obviously he also added like a ton of bat speed in the offseason was a result of like he thinks mostly like conditioning and getting stronger, but that was something that clearly was intentional, and he's clearly like seen the results of that's given him just like more capability to make more out of like the contact that we obviously saw him starting to make a little bit last year. And his approach has only gotten better. He's chasing, he was already like a good like plate discipline guy, but like he's been top 10 with the lowest chase rate in baseball like all season. I don't know if it's like exactly there right now, but I bet it's probably in that area. Like everything to him has like gotten a little bit better and made him more capable. Like, yes, his approach has maybe shifted to maximize that, but that's because these skills have grown up where there's something to maximize. Like if he did this in 2024, it wouldn't produce results. It's like building on top of like the pillars to his game that he's strengthened over the past 2 years.
And I think the White Sox, if Vargas hits another home run, Jim, I believe that would give him 3 players with 20 or more home runs before the All-Star break. And last time they did that was back in 2006. So that's pretty special as far as, again, what's helping fuel this White Sox turnaround is the offense, and especially in the slugging side. And I guess even from my perspective, I'm a bit surprised that Vargas already has 19 home runs. It'd be great if he did get to 37 homers. I didn't even think that was even a possibility for him, and he's breaking all of the preseason computer projections. But at the preseason, we were a bit unsure about Vargas's future with the White Sox. This was a big season for him, for everyone to gain some confidence that, yeah, you can count on Vargas being part of the 2027 and 2028 plans. Now, after the first half of the season, and even after this big weekend against the Royals, are you more confident to write Vargas's name in pen for future roster construction?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, before the season, he was a good player, like a solid player. I would call him a second division regular in that, like, if he's starting for you, it's not terrible, but you could easily upgrade. And also, he's hard to complement on a roster. Like, he's not an obvious platoon candidate. He's not especially strong defensively. He's good at first base, I would say, but maybe doesn't hit like a first baseman. He was below average at third base and maybe didn't hit enough. So he's just kind of this like ordinary player who is a major leaguer in some fashion, but maybe not somebody you can plan around. And like you said, like he's blowing away projections, even like the 99th percentile projection in PECOTA, nowhere close to what he's doing with the White Sox. So
really,
like, their best case scenario did not see this coming. And that's one reason I think why, they have a winning record. They're in first place when they had low single digits percentage of making the postseason, according to projections. With the White Sox probably likely drafting a shortstop of some kind, number 1 overall, you have some idea of like, the infield might get crowded, but like as I wrote about in the minor keys a couple days ago, Caleb Bonnemer is having a really rough defensive season, both at shortstop and third base. Like he's already matched his error total with 40 games fewer than he had last year. So it's a case of maybe it's like level or body, athleticism, etc. That's or maybe just could be in defensive slump. But if he moves to first base or an outfield, all of a sudden like there's an extra couple of years where you need a third baseman, and Vargas fits that bill. Murakami only under contract for another year, and we'll see what happens with that. But like, DH first base, there's opening there. So lots of room for him that maybe didn't anticipate even before you get to his production being, maybe the most valuable of the production of the White Sox, not only in terms of WAR, like maybe Murakami's up there in terms of his impact when he's healthy, but right now he's not healthy, and Vargas is healthy and playing damn near every day. So, he's got the case for most valuable White Sox. And it's really interesting that like his name hasn't really come up when it comes to extensions. Like you hear all about, they got to sign Mooney. They got to make sure they keep him around. And like Colson, what's his price? And you really haven't heard much about Vargas, but you look at the StatCast page and it's basically like all red, aside from like some, 50th percentile or 40th percentile for like defense, which is fine. Like, otherwise he's killing it. Offensively, it's like really sturdy the way he's built this offensive profile. Certainly a personality that James has spoken about that people seem to gravitate around. He's like, I guess, one of the centers of the clubhouse and kind of a bridge guy in the clubhouse, given that he's bilingual. So he's got that going for him. So like, I'm surprised that you don't hear much about like extend Vargas the way that you do about a couple other guys, and maybe just kind of snuck up on everybody. And hasn't quite overwritten the kind of ordinary he was last year and the disaster he was 2 years ago. Uh, that it's you have to update some priors, but yeah, it's rock solid, the offensive production, and now it's just a matter of like, is anybody going to challenge him? And you have to get to the point where you're teaming with shortstops in AAA probably in order to consider moving Vargas off third base and figure out what to do with them or what to do with anybody else.
Yeah, because with Vargas and Montgomery, to your point, Jim, they continued to raise the bar. At the beginning of the year, like when the White Sox won the draft lottery, it's like, oh yeah, Rock Chalowski's got an easy path. He might be able to join the White Sox before the end of the 2026 season. We have no idea what the White Sox have at short and third. And now it's like, oh, we have a very good understanding of what the White Sox have at short and third. They could have potential all-stars. Like every year could be part of the all-star conversation. Every year they're going to hit 30 or more home runs. And to Colson's case, he's been playing. He had a tough series against the Royals defensively, I thought, this weekend. But for the most part, he's been very good defensively. And do any of us want to envision a future of the White Sox without Munetaka Murakami? And you still got Sam Antonacci and Chase Meidroth at second. Yeah, Jim, the bar continues to get raised for all these White Sox prospects with how well Miguel Vargas and Colson Montgomery have played. Now I feel like, Jim, if Vargas doesn't make the All-Star team with the players voting, I'm going to be angry. I am going to be angry about the All-Star game if Vargas is not on that team.
Fair enough.
I'd be angry if the White Sox just only have one representative, period. But I'm sure many of you as well.
Any
podcast
business
listeners.
Investment reasons for that, or just
no? I do not. I do not have any.
Justice.
Do not have any prop bets. I'm going to lean off that because the Players Association doesn't want it anymore.
James going to
I
Philly.
was thinking more travel budget expenditure.
Yeah. Yes, yes. It would be great if James could talk to someone.
You took it to this untoward level.
That's true.
I'm not crooked.
Oh, well, in our previous episode, when we previewed this series to the White Sox and Royals, we had a segment about guys who needed a big weekend against the Royals. So let's recap that. And this is a great way to set up the stage for Seranthony Dominguez. James, the White Sox didn't really need Dominguez on Friday. They didn't need much on Friday. Saturday, Grant Taylor was awesome. That's the best we've seen Grant Taylor, I think. And yeah, Sean Newcomb gave up a run, but that whole bridge from Davis Martin, Sean Newcomb, and Grant Taylor, I think is probably the White Sox a game plan in closing out games. So on Sunday, Dominguez comes in. The White Sox are already down, and he does pitch a scoreless inning. How did you feel about the way that he pitched on Sunday, and how did Dominguez feel about that particular situation that he pitched in?
Well, I mean, he looked a bit better. He certainly wasn't falling behind as much. But yeah, it was more that he in some sense, he pitched certainly as well as he had, over a week. He struck out Bobby Witt. So that looked great, and he certainly felt uppy about that. But obviously the noteworthy part of it was that he came in the sixth inning. There's really no dressing it up as even medium leverage of what he entered into. And Zach Bove kind of said it before the game in a way that we weren't sure. We asked, could he appear in lower leverage? And he didn't say yes, that's what's going to happen. But he's maybe, in a way that we're well, was that kind of a wires cross thing? But then he appeared in the sixth, and Will Venable said post game, yeah, we told him it was coming early in the week. And Seranthony was around down to the, basically the same. He confirmed the same version. Yeah, I got told it. And it seems I think certainly anyone seeing the closer kind of complained, or the reliever kind of complained at all about I expected to be the closer as he did. Though I thought he did it an even-handed fashion. It was a surprise more than I'm upset, or I making demands to be back. He said multiple times, I'll do whatever is needed for the team. He just kind of I thought was honest about being a little miffed, which I thought was like he's reading the situation correctly. He's not being used as a normal closer. For this, I think, especially with the way he spoke after the blown save on Monday, he was very like, I have blown two straight saves. It's not a good moment for me right now. I think is exactly what he said. He's responded in kind, like, yeah, they used me low leverage after I blew like a couple saves. Like, I think he's understanding it as something that, followed from his performance and accepted it, at least from what he said to us, is he's playing a good face about it. And, he went out there and performed. So I think he's handling it how he should be, or how you'd want anyone to be. Like, not to say what he should do. I think the real, thing that still has to be resolved in it, or still provides anxiety, is like, is he going to perform? Is he going to be consistent? Like, talking to Bo ahead of time, like, about his arm action and getting him on time. Like, yeah, he's super mobile and springy and like and loose, and like this gives him like extension on his pitches and like can make like as part of why he throws hard and makes him good. But it's a little tricky to get this guy timed up. He can get out of whack kind of easily, and I think that's kind of reflected in Seranthony's career numbers for why you could scrutinize, like, all right, maybe the highs are going to be high, but he's never going to necessarily be. Is he ever going to be necessarily this closer, consistent like rock who's like on his game for like 6 months straight? There's probably going to be down periods with that side of profile. They're betting on the stuff, and I get that from is this reliever going to be usable for 2 years? Philosophy. It's probably easier to get this guy in a good space of command than it is to bring back an old reliever losing his fastball. Like, that's kind of doesn't come back when it does. But are there going to be these swings in his command that make him like just not eighth and ninth inning suitable for stretches of time? And are you going to want to grit them out for the sake of like the guy you can talk yourself into being a closer when he's on? Or are you going to look at Grant Taylor and look like, hey, that looks pretty ready to go, maybe that's who we're going to use in the biggest moments? And how flexible Venable is in his leverage use, where he's often attacking the seventh or eighth like it is a save, I think allows him to skirt by a little bit the idea of like a definition closer, because he's already like throwing his best weapon at the situation, and he can turn and be like, yeah, it's the ninth for you, Seranthony, have at it, rack up the save, when his clear preference for like his top right-handed weapon still is visible to us and to the team as well. That's maybe a long-term concern if this is they are taking it more of the immediate approach of like, let's get Seranthony right. This is ideally one of our 4 leverage arms. Jordan Hicks has looked pretty good the last couple times out. Chris Murphy had been looking good his last few 3-4 outings. I mean, I think you're still more like, is he going to be? That's probably someone you're hoping graduates to medium leverage, not even in this like kind of 4-person conversation just yet. But it's not really settled. There's not a lot of obvious like, here are guys who are going to lengthen out our leverage group. Getting Seranthony back is a project that they seemingly need to get right at some point, if only to make the situation tenable in terms of like having another year and a half of like wanting to get value out of this guy who signed to be a closer. Looks like a step forward for that. As many wide-ranging scenarios and variables I just threw into analyzing the 4 hitters he faced on Sunday.
Grant Taylor only threw 1 ball, right? Like what, 19 strikeouts or 18 strikeouts?
18 of 19.
18 and 19 strikes. I think it was like 15 or 16, because I remember like in the press box going, no! And it was like 16-0. But yeah, he was on it.
Yeah, strikes, not strikeouts. I apologize. Jim, your guy, your pick to click to have a big weekend against the Royals was Chase Meidroth. And Meidroth had a huge Friday. He had 4 hits and he walked. He went 6 for 12 against the Royals with 2 walks. That doubles his walk total from his last 15 games. So I view this as good signs from Chase Meidroth this weekend, Jim. And hopefully he gets on a roll. What did you think about Meidroth this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, he's striking out way more than he should. And, it wouldn't be the first time that somebody had an adjustment that was working for him and started not working for him, but still with some results, to where when do you start changing back versus when do you keep hacking through it and, figure out like where the limit actually is. And, you saw him, I guess, easing up more, using more of the whole field, not swinging, missing so much. So that's probably more of his game is, moving the ball around. Certainly you don't want him to do that on uh, a 1-0 count, settling for opposite field singles. Like, there's a balance still to strike. He's got enough from these first 81 games to where like there's something here with hitting for more power and really making himself a credible starting second baseman on a good team to where like he shouldn't give it up. But yeah, probably a little bit of like toggling some dials a little bit to understand, how much can I possibly get out of the power game, and then how much is my swing and miss actually costing me.
Yeah, Friday was a very impressive game. Great bounce back by Meidroth. And I think he even told you, James, as well in the post game that he worked with Derek Showman, the White Sox hitting coach, just to work on some mental things, waiting for the ball to get deeper in the zone to make better contact than what his plan was in the previous 15 games where he was in a slump.
Just like kind of, I think his season, or especially the first like success that he had in May, was about like opening up and trying to drive the ball a bit more and accepting more swing and miss. This is catching the ball out front, and with that to elevate it. I think this is a bit more recalibrating towards the contact, shoot the ball to right field version of Meidroth we've seen before. And it's not like he's giving up on his slugging ways and he's come back, he's strayed, and he'll never go away again. It was more just like,
sure,
all right, maybe I've gone too far to one end a little bit, and I'm going to do back to basics to get some feelings that I'm used to at the plate. So that's generally the tone he was striking. I don't think it's going to be like he'll never swing hard again. He's sworn it off for good.
My pick was Jacob Gonzalez. He had a big Friday. He went 3 for 4 with a home run. He had 5 RBIs in that game, and he had a walk-off hit on Saturday. But Munetaka Murakami, it sounds like he's running at 85% capacity right now. And if Munetaka Murakami gets healthier, could be rejoining the White Sox sooner than later. I don't know what the White Sox do with Jacob Gonzalez. I think this has been a nice cup of coffee for Gonzalez, so that if Murakami does rejoin the team, if Gonzalez goes back to Charlotte, I think, there are some things offensively to be a little bit more consistent that he could work on, especially on pitches up in the zone. But for a while, I was thinking, guys, that this was going to be a bust. This was going to be a first-round pick that was never going to reach the major leagues. And I give a lot of credit to Gonzalez for keeping up with it and making the adjustments, Jim. I know you've seen him more in action than I have. And to be able to provide these positive results, not just in Charlotte this year with the amount of home runs that he hit, but still having these moments as well in the major league level with the White Sox. I've been impressed in the turnaround of Jacob Gonzalez this season.
Yeah, question for James. When Gonzalez is going into his hitting mechanics, was he talking to you or is he talking to everybody?
Everybody.
Yeah, that's what was surprising when I talked to him in Charlotte the first time. Like, I'd never met him before. Like, he was getting detailed with me in a way that like a lot of guys don't. A lot of guys will make offhand, just kind of general references to made some changes, and then you have to see, kind of follow up with a question or two to see how much they're willing to divulge, or how much they have a vocabulary for it, or how much they really care about, giving information to me specifically, a guy they just met. And yeah, Gonzalez, without like prompting, really detailed and telling me like what he was doing with his weight, especially at that point. It was more about, keep trying to keep his weight back in his direction, and the battle between going too far to right field and trying to feel comfortable with that. And I was really surprised that he was so forthcoming. And yeah, it just seems like his default mode to open up whenever somebody asks him a question, which could be worrisome in a way, like the Paul Konerko strain of constant tinkering or constant like never feeling comfortable and hating it. But certainly it seems like this year has been the one where like the changes have stuck, and there's actually been, the kind of power, or at least quality of contact that was expected from him on draft day.
Yeah, he likes physical demos.
Yeah.
Like,
Which is
what do you
great.
mean?
Well, he'll mime it out, and
Okay.
like it's mostly like swing, but like in Detroit, with his throw home, and like he's standing like in this scrum, and like all these like dejected teammates are in the chairs around him, and he's like miming out like being up in the air to get the ball and like throwing home, and how much time it would take if he got down and had to fire, and why he like just did it right off the bat. He's like reaching, like he's almost touching the ceiling. It's like, this is very involved. Yeah, It's like,
I love
yeah,
it.
I still don't know like how you got to this decision, but like I kind of do. Like you've walked me through every step of it, and now it has like more credibility just because like you drew it out to this degree. So yeah, he's enjoyable. And I mean, he just did the thing on Saturday where he explained like why Chase Meidroth was like basically in his batter's eye, and the ball
Yeah.
was coming out of nowhere. And you talked about like Paul Canero. It really like I think it's not because it's not like super ponderous. It's just very matter of fact in a way that's like not. He doesn't have like 100 words to tell you about why like the like the release point of John Schreiber was like in Chase's Meidroth's jersey and got him to move over. It's just like, yeah, he was taking a small lead, so I just waved him over. Yeah, it seemed like the thing to do. I was like, have you ever done that before? It's like, I guess not. Like you thought to do that in the middle of like a game. It's like, well, I couldn't see it. So he's like very like just direct, a communicator, as possible.
Pragmatic.
Yeah, he's also kind of funny. His walk off, that'd be like, this is my first walk off ever. I thought that was a great post game
He's
press
like
conference.
walk off sack flies, walk off ground out.
Yeah, never walk off hit. So
He had the RBI ground out highlight, right? His draft season,
Right,
the
yeah,
White
yeah.
Sox shared. Yeah.
yeah.
He also had the line about like this is my favorite birthday. Well, other than the first one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, a good weekend for the White Sox. Sure. They had a chance to sweep the Royals. They also had a chance to sweep the Guardians, but in a surprise of all surprise seasons for the Chicago White Sox in 2026 to go 4-2 against divisional opponents in their homestand, they got the job done.
Howard, my husband fell at a construction site. I knew it wasn't safe.
At Aiken Law, we're one of the largest filers of workers' compensation claims in the state. If you've been hurt on the job, in a car accident, or suffered a medical mistake, call 312-6-million.
Now the Chicago White Sox head out east to Baltimore, Maryland to face the Baltimore Orioles. And the American League East, if you are not the New York Yankees or the Tampa Bay Rays, this season is going to hell fast. The Orioles are 39-46. They're fourth place in the American League East. They're 11 games back of first place. The only reason why they have any hope is that there are only 4 teams in the American League with a winning record. So they're 3 games back of the wild card right now, even though they lost their last 2 games. They are 4-6 in their last 10. Of course, like many teams in Major League Baseball, they do have a winning record at home. They are 23-21 at Camden Yards. And for the season series, if you recall, the Baltimore Orioles swept the Chicago White Sox at Rate Field. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. The White Sox have lost 9 consecutive games against the Baltimore Orioles. Your probable pitchers for this series, Monday nights, 5:30 p.m. Central Time. Sean Burke will take the ball for the White Sox against Shane Baz. Tuesday night, Eric Fetty, unless the White Sox have an opener, could be. Trey Gibson will take the ball for the Orioles. And then on Wednesday, if you are working, this is a very early start, 11:35 a.m. Central Time. It is the to be determined versus to be determined pitching matchup for the White Sox and Orioles. We'll get into that pitching matchup in a moment. But Jim, for me, coming into this series, and it's one of those that just sneaks up on you and just how poor. I mean, the White Sox have played everyone poorly the last 3 years, but especially Baltimore having lost 9 straight games against the Orioles. What makes Baltimore so tough for the White Sox, Jim?
I looked into this because I was, kind of got into a rabbit hole. They went 7-0 against Baltimore in 2021 and are 5-24 since. So it's like you start with like regression, first of all. Really painful regression. So start there. You have like they played a lot of their games in September when the White Sox have traded their good players and kind of out of gas. The Orioles are playing for something, the White Sox are not. So like it is a incentives maybe are mismatched. So you have that getting in the formula. But I think, if you separate that out, I think probably the biggest factor is the Orioles. I think, they've hadn't necessarily had like the deepest rotation, but they've gotten by with like bullpens and like high octane arms. And I think the White Sox have just been easy to game plan around, like in the past several years, just because they don't have left-handed hitters or they have very outdated information that they're working with, or training, etc. To where just late game matchups are, if not shooting fish in a barrel, just very easy to kind of plan around in pregame meetings and not really have to diverge from. And the reconfiguration of Camden Yards also didn't help. Like if you have right hand power and then you make left field like 400 feet deeper, they've hit like one homer there, I think, in the last 3 years. So like they haven't been able to hit homers with the right-handed hitters at that park. And so if you're hitting fly balls that aren't, like if you have Andrew Vaughn pre-Milwaukee form, to where like he's not going to hit 440-foot blasts. Like he tends to be like well-struck fly balls that land 3 rows deep. He's not rewarded for that in that park, and then you just kind of go on and on and on. So I think it's just kind of a confluence of factors. But I think just probably what I'm most looking forward to with this series is, one, seeing like the Will Venable versus Craig Alvarez matchup, since Alvarez was a not quite finalist. I guess he took himself out of the running before he got to that point, but the White Sox were interested in him, and I think Alvarez said no. So you have that as a little bit of intrigue, but also just with how frenetic Venable is with mixing and matching and pinch hitting, will that make a difference when you have left-handed hitters who can counteract right-handed pitchers, and then you have right-handed hitters who can, when you bring in the lefty, you have an answer for them. Will that make a difference in how these games have unfolded versus the last 3 years?
And then for that Wednesday pitching matchup, the morning special to be determined for the White Sox, James, is this going to be another bullpen game, or could we see the return of Noah Schultz?
You will see the return of Noah Schultz. Like, they can't officially say it. They've all but said it. Their starts, the slot they literally had the rehab and the Sandlin start the same day. They wouldn't have sent Sandlin down if there was any real doubt in their mind that Schultz will be ready. It's going to be Schultz.
Okay. What should we expect from Schultz, I guess? I mean, are they going to hope that he can go at least 5 innings?
I imagine he'd be in the 85 to 90 territory. I think innings, as seen by Anthony Kay on Sunday, is dictated by performance. You can't just force someone to the 5-inning finish line. And generally just this management group, as coaching staff, is not just going to be forcing a struggling pitcher a third time to the order willy-nilly. So I think that Governor would be on it. But as far as like building off like 15 to 20 from his last time out, when I talked to Noah right before he went out on rehab, one, it was, I guess, a testament to him feeling healthy that he like was just talking about pitches he was working on more than like my repeated like, so you're feeling all right follow-ups. But he was trying to work on kind of a different version of his sweeper that would be more vertical and just play better to right-handers. That he's shown the ability to kind of vary up shapes of his slider in the past. He's trying to get back to that. He's got the four-seamer to the north part of adding north-south to his east-west attack. He needs something that's south. They're hoping the slider takes that burden up by showing some ability to make it kind of like what Anthony Kay was able to do to be better against right-handers. Obviously not a recent great example, but he's got kind of a more true slider version of his sweeper that he turns out to the opposite-hand hitters. Seems like Schultz kind of going after the same thing, but has also kind of shown it in the past, and it's more just kind of getting him right and figuring out how to throw it now that his knee is hopefully not going to bother him going forward. So that's how that plays the right-handers would be the thing to watch to hover around.
All right. Well, something to look forward to, White Sox fans, that Wednesday morning start with Noah Schultz taking the ball right before the White Sox head to Cleveland for a very important 4-game series over the 4th of July weekend. We'll see what the weather is like in Cleveland, as we are all getting heat warnings in Chicago as a big heat dome is rolling through. So probably a good thing that the White Sox are not at home this upcoming week. And before we conclude, as far as this series wrap and also this episode of the podcast, who needs a big series against Baltimore? Jim, I'll start with you. Who's your pick to click? Who is someone you'll be watching these 3 games against the Orioles?
Feels like Colson Montgomery is every other series at this point. So just, it seems like this is his time to be on.
That is a good one. I'm going to go with Tristan Peters. If the White Sox are going to be relying on these left-handed hitters, if Tristan can provide those big hits, especially late in games, try and hit the ball as hard as possible, could that be the difference in this series for the White Sox? I have a feeling we could be seeing some high-scoring games between the Orioles and White Sox this week. James, you got one. Who needs a big series for the White Sox against the Orioles?
I mean, the White Sox could certainly need Schultz to do well to stabilize their rotation, and they've kind of obviously made this choice to option Sandlin, kind of banking on the Schultz is going to hit the ground running more or less, and maybe Sunday was a reminder of like what it looks like when K's not on, is a little bit of reiterating the need for another person to emerge as like an above average consistent starter. Like they're kind of really heavily protect, like Fetty obviously was a more effective June, but it was kind of a heavily managed in how it was effective. There were multiple outings where they pulled them shy of 5 innings. They're really kind of targeting like where they use him, and it's not a lot of third trips to the order, and certainly not going to be against lefties. So you're going to need the other sides. You have Davis Martin, who you've been trying to like give extra rest to, in light of how many innings he logged at the start of the season. So having someone else who's delivering 6 innings on a regular basis, certainly very necessary. I know we just said Schultz, but I think that it's not so much he needs, because I think personally Schultz, he's kind of like one of the comparisons to Randy Johnson you would have is that there's a very long window for Schultz to become awesome. He has like an outlier frame, like be scuffled this whole year. I don't think it would mean like his profile is never going to work or even be like impact. He's ahead of schedule in many respects still. So the White Sox could really use like Noah Schultz, like taking the ball and running with it going forward. Like he's got a lot of potential to help them in an area where they really need the most help, going into the deadline.
Yeah, especially because even though Sean Burke and Eric Fetty are starting this series, they're going to have to start the Saturday and Sunday games against Cleveland right now, unless the White Sox have other ideas in mind. This is a big week for the White Sox. 7 straight games, no days off. We'll see on how they fare. We'll have our next Sox Machine podcast episode recapping this series between the White Sox and Orioles on Wednesday night, and also look ahead to that very important 4th of July series between the White Sox and Guardians. But that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you just discovered the Sox Machine Podcast, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. Also, check out our videos. We've been doing a lot of videos, especially when the White Sox are at home, at youtube.com/Sox Machine. If you do watch our videos, please hit the subscribe button. We've gained a lot of subscribers this month and a lot more views. So thank you to everyone that's taken time to watch our videos on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sox Machine. You can even watch this show now on our YouTube channel. So please do so. And again, hit the subscribe button. Follow us on social media. We're on all the social media platforms at Sox Machine. You can follow James at JR Fegan. You can follow me at Sox Machine_Josh. And Jim, when it comes to Sox Machine subscriptions, do we still have the sale going on?
Certainly do. And with them being 4 games above 500, you have at least 3 more games to where the winning record sale will still be in effect. Still 52 cents because they keep hovering around that mark, be it rounding up or rounding down. So yeah, come aboard. We're expecting you.
Yes. So your first month, 52 cents. Every month after that, it'll be part of the $5 subscription. That gets you the ad-free version of the podcast and the website, unlocks the comment section as well. If you want more, you can get more. We have additional tiers of support, including our Veterans Committee, which our VC members are part of our group chat, and they get to hear everything that's going to be coming to Sox Machine, and also all the gossip, whispers, the gossipers that's coming out of the White Sox clubhouse, and especially as we gather more intel for the MLB draft. So if you want to be part of that conversation, you can acquire within at soxmachine.com/products. The Sox Machine Podcast is a production of soxmachine.com, your home for all things Chicago White Sox baseball. Alongside James Fegan and Jim Margulis, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.